Assalamualaikum everyone. Today, my group and I will be presenting the case of HSBC Bank Malaysia Berhad versus the National Union of Bank Employees or NUBE. Before we start our presentation, let us first introduce our group members. My name is Muhammad Azim Hakimi bin Abdullah Sani. My metric numbers F1014. Next, Muhammad Aidin bin Muhammad Safiri F1027. And lastly, Muhammad Farish Amshah bin Abdul Razak F1061.
Okay, now let's move on to the table of content for our presentation. This slide gives an overview of what we will be covering today. First, we will start with the case summary where we will briefly explain the background and context of the case that we have chosen. Next, we will go into the introduction and background of the company or union to help you understand the organization and the parties involved in the dispute. Then, we will discuss the industrial dispute or issues which highlights the main conflict or problem that occur between the employer and employees. After that, we will explain the details of involvement and process where we describe the steps taken by both sides, including mediation or legal process if any. Following that, we will move to the settlement section where we will share how the dispute was resolved and the final decision made by the involved parties. And lastly, we will end with our conclusion summarizing the key lessons and outcomes from the case.
Okay, so thank you, my partner Azim. And for my part, I will explain about the case summary. So, this case involved a dispute between HSBC Bank Malaysia, Berhad, and the National Union of the Bank Employer or NUBE. The issue began when one of the new officer, who was also an HSBC employee, participated in several peaceful protests organized by the union. The protests were meant to highlight ongoing dispute regarding the employee welfare and unresolved labor matter. During the protest, the officer posted statement on social media criticizing HSBC and even used the hashtag HSBC liar to express dissatisfaction. HSBC viewed this as a serious breach of discipline and deciding to dismiss the employee on the ground of misconduct. Nube, on the other hand, believed that the dismissal was unjust and a form of victimization toward the onion union officer who was simply exercised his right under the Industrial Relations Act 1967. Because no mutual agreement was reached, the matter was referred to industrial court for a fair decision. This case became a significant example of how industrial relation laws protect employee rights and regulate employee action in Malaysia. Okay, so now I will explain about the introduction of company and union. So, HSBC Bank Malaysia Berhad is part of one of the largest banking and financial services organization in the world. In Malaysia, it has been operating for many years, providing commercial banking, wealth management, and various financial services. This bank also maintain a strong code of conduct and expect professionalism from its employees. Meanwhile, National Union of the Bank Employees of Nube is one of the most active trade union in Malaysia. It represents thousands of workers across the banking sector. The union main goals are to safeguard employees' welfare, ensure fair treatment, and protect workers' rights through collective bargaining and advocacy. The conflict between HSBC and Nuke began when an HSBC staff members also held an official position in the union, became involved in union-led protests and campaigned to address certain employment grievances. In his public criticism of the bank eventually led to dismissal and that triggered a major industrial relation case.
And now let's take a look on the industrial dispute and issue. So the core issue in this case was the dismissal of a union officer by HSBC. The employee had joined a lawful picketing and peaceful protest organized by the National Union of Bank Employees. This protest was conducted to draw attention to what the union considered unfair labor practice and unresolved employee grievance within the HSBC. However, the HSBC viewed that the employee's behavior was a misconduct, especially because he had made public posts on social media criticizing the bank, even using the hashtag HSBC liar. The bank claimed that his action damaged its reputation and went against the company codes of conduct. On the other hand, the National Union of Bank Employees argued that the dismissal was a direct attack on the employee's right to participate in union activities. The union believed that HSBC action violated the freedom of association protected by the law, and the employee was being punished simply for representing his union. So, the main dispute was really about whether HSBC had the right to dismiss the employee for what it considered misconduct, or whether the employee was protected under the Industrial Relations Act as a part of his lawful union activity. Moving on to the details of involvement and process involved. As a union representative, the employee played on an active role in the protest, an online campaign that aimed to bring attention to unresolved employee issues. The protests were peaceful and were meant to pressure the employee to engage in meaningful discussion. However, the HSBC reacted by issuing a dismissal letter claiming that the employee's social media posts and public criticism amounted to misconduct that tarnished the bank's image. Feeling that this decision was unfair, the National Union of Bank Employees immediately lodged a complaint with Industrial Relations Department under the Industrial Relations Act 1967. The complaint argued that the dismissal was without just cause or excuse. At first, the department attempted to resolve the issue through conciliation, which is a process where both parties discuss and try to reach an agreement. But since both sides could not settle, the Minister of Human Resources itself referred the case to the Industrial Court for a formal hearing. During the court session, the National Union of Bank Employees presented the evidence showing that the protests were lawful and related to real employment grievance. They also argued that the employee action were within his right as a union officer.
And for my last part, I will explain about the settlement. So, after hearing all the evidence and agreement, the industrial court ruled in favor of the employee and Nube. The court found that HSBC had dismissed the employee without just cause or excuse. It emphasized that the employee was simply performing his duties as a union representative, and that his participation in the protest and social media campaign was protected under Section 4 and 5 of the Industrial Relations Act 1967. The court clarified that the union officers are legally allowed to participate in lawful union activities, even those activities involve criticizing an employer, as long as they done in a good faith and within reasonable limit. Therefore, HSBC decision to terminate the employee was declared invalid, and the bank was reminded that the employee cannot punish or victimize employees for taking part in legitimate union action. The rule became an important precedent for future cases involving employee right and union freedom in Malaysia.
In conclusion, this can reinforce the protection of trade union rights in Malaysia. It clearly states that employees cannot be punished for engaging in lawful industrial action. The case also highlights the importance of fair industrial relations and responsible leadership. Employers should prioritize negotiation and constructive engagement rather than retaliatory action. The HSBC and Nube case demonstrate the vital function of unions in promoting justice and communication within the workplace, and how the tripartite system involving employers, employees, and the government to ensure fair dispute resolution.